So on Fridays, I've been talking about some aspect of almsgiving. Caring for the poor is a part of who we are. Caring for those in need gives our lives meaning by giving the gift of dignity. One might be tempted to expand the definition of the poor and those in need to a greater group of people, but really this call to serve is about the very physical state of poverty. We find ourselves in a quandary with this call for social distancing. Perhaps we decided that for Lent we were going to take our whole family to serve in a thrift shop or in a soup kitchen or a shelter. What do we do now that we have to be socially responsible, distancing ourselves from people to eliminate the possibility of our participating in the spread of a virus? I think we find ourselves in need of a lot of prayer and having to make difficult decisions. I call to mind the stories in the Bible of the lepers and the outcasts. People risked their lives to serve those who were cast out, those who were considered unclean. Those who served risked getting sick themselves and bringing that sickness back to their homes. I hear the protests today against canceling faith-based activities and prayer gatherings. I compare our current situation to the accounts through history when people purposefully gathered and banded together in faith and prayer despite this or that outbreak. As a group, they showed a strength of faith that gave people hope and recourse. Yes, in doing so, they risked their lives by gathering publicly. They risked spreading a contagion, but they built up the faith and hope of the people. Having our churches closed is not a new thing. It was also done in the early 1900s. And the statistics bear out that those cities that restricted public gatherings had lower death rates than those who were less restrictive. But one really cannot definitively prove by statistic that the restrictions were the cause of either case, lower or higher death rates. I'm not saying that I'm against social distancing, nor am I saying that we should protest and have public worship anyway. I'm merely pointing out that when we face these types of situations, we have difficult decisions to make. That decision could be a life or death decision for us, or for another person, or even for several people. And it should not be made lightly, and it should always be made in the light of the gospel. Will I go and serve the poor even though I might get sick? Will I gather for worship despite the call to avoid public gatherings? Does our need to show strength and faith in prayer, to bring hope to others, outweigh the risk of sickness, possibly imprisonment, and maybe even death? I do feel we've been given a public challenge. Our culture once would have understood the need for a public display of prayer and faith. But today our culture sees no difference between the public faith-based gatherings and any other public gathering, and that is a problem. It's one that we can only respond to with faith and prayer. But for these remaining weeks of Lent, personally, I choose to abide by the social distancing directive, not because of fear, but out of deference to the decision makers. I can freely admit that my Lenten pledge did not include almsgiving goal that would put me into contact with the poor, for better or worse. My Lenten pledge was related to social outreach of the virtual kind, and I have the opportunity to continue that with peace of mind. That said, if my husband or my children were to get infected, I would hope to have the courage to desire to isolate myself with that family member so that they would not be alone in their suffering. I would take every precaution, but I would not want to abandon them. I might have to fight a few healthcare professionals, but I hope that I would be willing to do that. Make your decisions with every awareness of the realities of this virus and in the light of God's mercy. God asks us to embrace the gift of life every day. May we live each day as though it were our last and love our neighbor as we love ourselves. Be safe, be aware, and pray well. And be sure to check the comments to find today's song pick and leave comments and share so that Facebook knows people are watching.